One of the number one questions I get as an AI consultant is which AI model should I be using? My my answer with a chuckle comes, well, wait 20 minutes and I'll tell you. The problem is these things are moving so quickly that the answer that I give now could be completely different than the answer that I give you next week or next month. I have jumped around from model to model and that's been a bit of a problem. I started like everybody else with ChatGPT in the very beginning, like a week after it came out. And for a couple of years, it was my go to model for everything. So when Gemini came out, and Gemini Pro was so mind blowing, and I wanted to jump to it. My biggest hesitation was, well, what about all the memories that I have in ChatGPT? Now, I found a workaround. I basically had ChatGPT download all of its memories, synthesize it in such a way that I could plug it into Gemini, and that worked, kind of. The problem is I am constantly back and forth between all kinds of models currently. So I might be in Manus in the morning and in ChatGPT in the afternoon and Gemini an hour later and Perplexity and OpenClaw and all of these different systems. And the problem they run into frequently is their answers are going to be dependent upon what knowledge it has about me and the context of the situation that I'm dealing with. Therefore, if I ask a question of Gemini, and I ask the exact same question of ChatGPT and it's something personal about me, the answers that I'm going to get are going to be completely different because the memories that ChatGPT might have of me and Gemini might have of me are going to be different. The other problem I have is I find that I jump into Grok and I have a conversation about something. And then the next day, I want to go back to that conversation and I honestly can't remember which LLM I was in. So I go to Gemini and I'm searching keywords, and I go to ChatGPT and I'm searching keywords, and I go to Perplexity, I'm searching keywords, and finally I go to Grok and I'm like, oh yeah, that's where I was. That's an annoyance, but the bigger problem here is this memory fragmentation. It's this idea that we've got different things going on in different places. How do you solve that problem? Well, I don't know if I found the solution, but I have found a solution. Now, I got to give credit to my online buddy, Nate B. Jones, for this. He basically put together a project called the OB1 Project, okay? And it basically stands for the Open Brain One Project. And his goal is to solve the fragmented memory problem. Now, I'll just tell you up front, this is a GitHub. Just check out Nate B. Jones, no spaces there, Nate B. Jones on GitHub, and you can find this project. It is open source. It's easy to download. It's easy to install. In fact, if you've got OpenClaw, just have OpenClaw do it for you. That's what I did. I basically reached out and I said, "Hey, what do you know about OpenBrain?" And it came back and said, "Oh, that's the Nate B. Jones project, and here's what it does, and blah blah blah." And then it said, "Do you want me to install it?" Well, yeah, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. Now, let me show you briefly what this looks like. Okay, this is a Gemini rendition of what OB1 looks like, the infrastructure layer for your thinking. Okay. Now it's a little bit complicated. So I want you to just look at this, right? The idea here is if you look at the top left, you're looking at your thinking. Okay. So this is anything that you want to put into the open brain. Okay. These can be documents, these can be Slack messages, these can be WhatsApp messages. They can, in my case, it's Telegram messages, might be through your browser, that kind of thing. Okay. Those messages go into what's called the open brain protocol. Okay. Basically, it takes the information, ingests it, and decides where to send it to. Okay. Now, the main thing about open brain is think of it this way. It is a single hub, a brain, right? A memory storage that can be used across different AI clients and assistants. Okay. So think of it as plugging it into Claude, into ChatGPT, into Perplexity, into Gemini, into any LLM you can imagine, or not just LLM, but agentic AI as well. Right. You can plug anything into it. So I've got my OpenClaw plugged into it. I've got my ChatGPT plugged into it. I've got my Gemini plugged into it. I've got my Perplexity plugged into it, my Claude plugged, and on and on and on. The idea here is that whenever anything is stored in Open Brain, it is universal across all of the different LLMs. Now, what does that do for you? Well, that allows you to be able to go from LLM to LLM or from model to model and not worry about whether or not it's going to remember previous conversations. It's going to remember previous things about you. In fact, I'll even get bigger. One of the things that I'm currently setting up is what I call my canonical foundational documents. Canonical meaning they don't change. These are facts about me, about companies. These are foundation documents that are going to be the same. They're going to be stored in Open Brain so that no matter what I'm in, I can, for example, ask about my appraisal office, my farm, my coaching business, you name it, right? It's going to have the same context. So the other day, I was, let me just show you that. So that is a new little device I've got on the back of my phone called Plod, Plaud. I might do a video on Plod. Plod is an AI recorder. It basically records phone calls, it records meetings, Zoom meetings, you name it. Okay. It can also just record audio. So the other day, I'm driving down the road. I had about 15 minutes and I did a brain dump into Plod as I'm driving, everything that I can think of about the farm, why we created the farm, how big is it, what animals do we have, what's our goal, what's our vision, what's our finances, what are our organizational charts looking like anything I can think about the farm, I downloaded into one document. I took that document from Plod and I synthesized it into notes that I could then plug into Open Brain. Now, what it does is it creates this canonical document that doesn't change. It's a foundation for the farm. So if I'm in ChatGPT and I'm having an issue with the farm, I can make mention of it instead of catching it up and saying, okay, let me tell you a little bit about the farm so I can ask you a question about the farm. It doesn't need any of that. It goes to Open Brain. It already has the context so it can answer my question. And it wouldn't matter if I'm in ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or Claude or OpenClaw or you name it, it all has the same context. Now, here's another key. As you set this up, one of my friends did this before me. And by the way, he set up something different than Open Brain, but it's kind of the same thing. In fact, his is probably a little bit better than Open Brain, but he doesn't have it as a GitHub, so I can't deliver that to you. Okay. Nate B. Jones created something that he's willing to share with the world, basically to get eyes on his channel. By the way, highly recommend you follow his channel. He's very amazing. He teaches wonderful things, right? But he's offered this free gift to the world to say, hey, listen, use this GitHub, use what I've put together and allow your systems to talk to each other. Here's the key. And this is what I learned from my friend. Turn off your memories. I know that sounds counterintuitive. One of the best things about LLMs is it remembers stuff about you. The problem is if you have memories in Gemini, you're going to have different memories in ChatGPT. And if you have different memories in each one, you're going to get different answers. If you can use Open Brain as your memory instead, which means you've got to turn off the memories in each of those LLMs, they're only going to draw from the context that they have, and that's the context that you give them. By the way, it's not just about the canonical documents that I talked about, the foundation, right? It's also anything that you think is important. The way I have it set up is if I think something's important, I can just say, add that to Open Brain. It knows what section. If I'm talking about the farm, it knows to add it to the farm so that it doesn't get mixed up with the appraisal business. And as a consequence, I've got a document that is the same across LLMs. Folks, I'm telling you, this is worth installing and it's worth taking a little time to set up because the problem that people have with multiple LLMs is the confusion that they have because they don't have the same context. And when you deal with a question over here, it's not going to be translated over here. Therefore, they're not talking to each other. Open Brain allows them to talk to each other, to have the same data, the same memories, which is going to make your experience with AI much more consistent.